there. I'm your host, Leslie Randolph. I'm a self-confidence coach for teenage girls and the self-confidence coach you wish you had as a teen. Honestly, I'm the self-confidence coach I wish I had as a teen because I know I could have saved myself and my mother a whole lot of heartache if I'd only known then what I know now. I hope to save you some of that suffering by sharing the lessons I learned late in life right here on Why Didn't They Tell Us? Welcome to the show. Hey, happy people. Welcome back to Why Didn't They Tell Us? So excited to be back on the mic, back in the room with you, and so excited for today's show. Listen, if you've been on my website, and if you haven't, please, confidencecoachforgirls.com. But if you've been there, you'll see like in big bold letters why I'm so passionate about self-confidence. And it's because I believe self-confidence is the key to success. And I take into account that we all have very different ideas about what success looks like. And I still stand behind this assertion. Whether success means one day traveling the world or changing the world or changing diapers. Whether success means lots of money or making lots of connections. Whether it means being an actress or an astrophysicist. Confidence is key. And while the definition of success is unique for us all, and how wonderful that is, the journey or like the path towards success is often very similar. We go to elementary school and then we go to high school. Many of us go to college and then we set our sights on getting a job or starting a career. And I'll say it again and again, for this, confidence is key. And no one knows this better than my friend and today's guest, Heather Redisch. Heather is the founder and the mastermind behind the Talent Maven and the creator of the Adulting 101 Masterclass. For nearly 25 years, Heather has helped both companies and candidates create lasting, meaningful employment relationships that align skills, culture, and values. Recognizing the unique challenges young adults face after college, Heather developed the Adulting 101 Masterclass. Don't you just love that name? It's a hands-on curriculum that helps bridge the gap to adulthood, offering both guidance in personal and professional development. Adulting 101 isn't just a class, though. It's a supportive community where recent grads can connect, learn from each other, gain valuable insights from monthly experts in finance, wellness, career strategy, and much more, helping them, the candidates, grow both personally and professionally. Heather, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Leslie. I'm so honored to be here. I'm very excited.
I'm so excited. And of course, when I heard Adulting 101, because I've had the privilege of being on the sidelines cheering on Heather as she created this just like extraordinary one-of-a-kind program. And as soon as I heard it, I was like, I need to be a part of this world. I just love what you're doing. And I know that was a robust intro. But in your own words, tell us what is Adulting 101 Masterclass and why you felt compelled to create it.
So after college, I moved to New York City and my family's from Chicago, and I really wanted to stay close to my friends from college. And I just remember getting out there being like, what am I supposed to do now? Like, what does this all look and feel like? Right. I remember as I was growing up, I always had friends that were a little bit older than me, 1 or 2 years, and I would watch them. I would watch, the decisions that they made, and perhaps I mirrored those decisions because I liked what the outcome was for them, or I went the opposite direction because I didn't really like that outcome for them. And I was always kind of watching people older than me. And I was also the oldest in my grade. So I was like a November birthday. And so I also did things first before the rest of my friends in my year. And when we graduated, all of a sudden, there was no time frame for anyone to accomplish anything in life. And I just remember thinking, like, who's that older person for me that will be able to guide me and show me the ropes on what I should be doing and my job and my finances and my relationships and moving to this city. And now I always say to someone, like, you are not settled in your city for a full year. It takes a full year to get yourself really comfortable in a new city. But no one told me that, right? And so what happened was I ended up in this profession of recruiting. I graduated with a psych degree, but I ended up in this profession of recruiting, and it's working with people who I love. And I've loved my profession my whole life. I noticed in the last few years, as I had been interviewing so many different entry-level candidates through the course of my career, that in the last 5 years, just the confidence in my entry-level interviews it was lacking. And it really did not matter what school the student was from. It could be Duke, it could be University of Michigan, it could be Arizona, it could anywhere. There was no real difference, except that the one thing that seemed to be consistent was their confidence and talking to me and being able to write emails to me after to say thank you, and just navigating through the interview process. It just felt very awkward for them, more awkward than I'd ever seen. And I read a book a year ago called The Anxious Generation, which is like every single parent on the face of this earth should be reading.
Required reading, yeah.
It is. It's a required reading. It's a movement. But in the first chapter of that book, Jonathan Haidt talks about the invention of the smartphone. And the smartphone was launched in 2007. I had an epiphany while I was reading it that those 13-year-olds are now my 22-year-olds who are entering the workforce and have no skill set. They have no confidence, no communication skills. Why? Because they were raised on smartphones. And then the 1-2 punch was they went into COVID, relying on technology even more.
Yeah.
The 1-2-3 punch is that we as parents, me included, we have had instilled fear in our children and fear in ourselves that every time we let our kid go, they're going to be kidnapped. They're not. And so we have this helicopter parenting as well. So there is a lot at play. And that is what is happening now into corporate America, is companies are really struggling with managing Gen Z with how they were raised. And so as a full circle moment, I just came to the realization that I wanted to work with companies as well as students alike in preparing them for life after college, and what those 1 to 3 years or more, 5 years. I mean, really, Leslie, like, let's be honest, we're still learning how to adult, like, right?
Every day, my friend.
Endless every day. But that period of time, that transition where you've been so comfortable in college or in school, and then all of a sudden you get out and there's no rules and there's no one really coaching you and all of that. And that's how it was developed.
Well, and it's not just that. And I so appreciate something that you said, that through, and it kind of goes into what I said in the intro, through elementary school, high school, college, if you go to it, that we are all mirroring each other's milestones, right? We're all on exactly the same schedule. And to what you said is, and I love that you always looked up to these older people and were like, ooh, I like that. I don't like that. And all of a sudden, when we go our separate ways, we don't have kind of that temperature check of like, am I on the right timeline? Am I on the right path? Which is a blessing and a burden, right? Because it removes that idea of there is a right timeline or a right path. You and I both reinvented ourselves later in life. So look at that timeline. But then if you look at it as a burden, it's like, it could be paralyzing.
Oh, yeah.
And so we then have to look inward of motivating ourselves, creating our own goals, setting our own new milestones, and then having the confidence and courage to go after them. And I so appreciate you tying it back to that anxious generation and that idea of, that those guinea pigs, the ones who were first introduced to a life, only know a life with a smartphone, are the ones that are entering the workforce. And we see sort of the effects of that in terms of the confidence and the way of the communication. So like, let's go into Adulting 101 and the candidates that you've seen. What are some of those unique challenges?
When we were growing up, there was a landline. You had to call your friend on your landline, and you would pray that a parent wouldn't pick up, that you would have to talk to. And the parent, and now I can appreciate it more than ever. And if we had landlines, I would be so into it, which is the parents would talk to you. How are you? What's going on? How was your day? And you were like, oh, I don't want to talk to you. But you were forced to. Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Nice to speak to you. May I please speak to so-and-so? And you were forced. Now kids just text each other and they're on these group texts. We had like conference, like you could conference someone in, but other than...
I was laughing when you said the friend group thing, because I was like, we didn't have group chat. I 100% thought like my friend group typically would be 3 people if I was able to figure out the conference of like, hold on, I'm gonna bring in Taryn.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It's exactly it. And we conferenced each other, but the difference is, Leslie, is that we spoke to one another. We talked, and you are way more confident behind a screen trolling people than you are when you actually get on the phone with somebody and talk out an issue, or even if you're just, shooting the shit, if you will. Like, things come out differently and more authentic when you are speaking and communicating to someone versus over the phone. And so these kids are learning these behaviors that they become a little overconfident over the text messages because there's no immediate backlash or, and so now translate all of that into these students moving into interview settings, and they just, it's that looking somebody in the eye, having that, and I'm not talking, I just want to say, I'm not talking about those who are neurodivergent. I'm talking about those who grew up with phones in front of their faces and have a really hard time connecting because of that. Not if you are in any way, shape, or form the neurodivergent community, but being able to have conversations with adults is super, super intimidating now, more than ever, for kids to really understand that they're here to help you and guide you versus be against you. And the other thing, which is very true, is we didn't do everything right by any stretch of the means. Like, we have parents who burnt themselves out on their career, weren't around. We called each other latchkey kids because we never had our parents around. And yes, that did instill some sort of independence. But what's also happening now is this generation is like, I want to go home after work. Like, I want work-life balance. I want these things. And so there's this kind of push and pull between generations, and what Gen Z is confident in, older generations aren't, and vice versa. But the real issue is the communication coming, and the etiquette, just basic kind of etiquette that we expect is just not intuitive for them at all. Like, for an example, I had a call yesterday, and one of my students just didn't show. And I was like, no, like, you write a heads up. I will not be there today. I'm so sorry. But those are the little things that I'm talking about. It's like, doesn't even occur.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate something that you said about, the confidence behind a screen versus when you're face to face. And I challenge you a little bit on it. And I'm sure you'll agree, actually. I challenge you because I don't think that that's confidence. I often think of confidence as the willingness to feel that fear, that willingness to feel that awkwardness. And so now listen, we may or may not have been willing when our best friend's mom picked up the phone, but we also didn't hang up. We would then sit and talk to them, right? It was sort of forced upon us, but it was like this muscle we had to strengthen and build up. And with everyone having their own personal device, you don't have to build up that muscle. You don't have to build up that resilience. And I'm going to use the word again because it comes up in all my teen sessions, that resilience to awkwardness, that willingness to feel a little uncomfortable, recognize that you're being a little, maybe not all of us are conversationalists, that it, just rolls out, and that's okay. The more we strengthen the muscle, the better we'll get at it.
If I could have like this tattooed on my forehead, it would be comfortable being uncomfortable, like over and over again. And it is a muscle. It is a muscle that I have to work on. I don't love networking all the time. It can be awkward, and it takes a lot of energy out of you to put yourself out there, because you know that in order to get the most out of an experience, you got to be all in. But at the same time, you fear rejection, right? And you're a little nervous that like, maybe that's not going to work. And so the muscle I could not agree with you more. So let me just say this, forget about the word confidence. I'm going to change the word to embolden. Okay. So they become emboldened. It's the same way trolls are emboldened online, and they don't care. But if somebody really tries to face with most of these trolls, if you will, they back down because they felt emboldened. And some of that emboldened does move into the workforce, and older generations have a very hard time dealing with it. And also, younger generations need to understand how to tone and approach and move through things in a little bit more less aggressive type of way. So, and aggressive doesn't mean confident, to your point. So yeah, be comfortable being uncomfortable. It is the most important thing that you can work on as a skill in your life. And you're always working on it because you're pushing yourself.
100%. And the only the only way to the other side is to go through it. The only way to get good at it is to be willing to be bad at it and then keep growing and keep going. Now, you touched upon like what the hiring generation, and dare I say the older generation, then thinks of this incoming generation. So give us like a behind the scenes look about like the idea of like kids today. I put it in quotations, but like some of the thoughts that the older generation does have. And are these misconceptions or are they right on?
Yes. So I actually just wrote about this morning on LinkedIn, which is that older generations, like my generation, think that Gen Z is not resilient, that they're combative, that they're entitled, and that they lack confidence and etiquette. Like those are all the things. And some of it's true. I mean, it is. But again, we can't look at them and judge based on the environment that they grew up on. So they say that my generation, you're younger than me, Leslie, but my generation is probably the most nostalgic generation. I'm Gen X. And why I'm the most nostalgic generation is because we can very clearly remember life with technology and life without technology. So we're like don't get me started with the 80s, whether it's music or game, like when I get sent something on Instagram, like of all the old games from the 80s, like that is everything to me. However, what I believe is probably the best way for older generations and younger generations to really connect are through these types of 80s games, like the rummy cubes of the world and the monopolies and the chess and if even and I have challenged companies to bring those types of games into and set aside even an hour a week as your team and just play games. Because what ends up happening is that there is a back and forth, natural, organic conversation that happens about life and understanding each other a little bit more and how we were raised and what we think and all that. And just being able to check it all at the door. We have a lot of work to do.
But I love how you say we have a lot of work to do, because a lot of what you touched upon, that idea of etiquette, entitlement, resilience, I mean, these aren't like genetic dispositions. They are skills that can be learned. And I also appreciate your seeing it both sides, right? This conversation is not at all of like these kids, because everybody has to, we all need some resilience and flexibility, right? The older hiring generation, the older generation needs to meet them where they are. And the younger, the candidates need to step up with some of these skills.
Yeah.
So it's on all of us. I love what you said. Like, we can't just complain about them. We actually, up to us to empower them and educate them. And
because we kind of screwed them up. Like we did. We did. So it's our responsibility to try and help, with that, but also keeping in mind what they can bring to the table. And when we were growing up, Leslie, I mean, no one would talk about having a therapist. Okay. You never would admit if you were on medicine. We have come a really long way with that. Kids they're proud if they have a therapist. They're not bashful about it. A lot of kids who've been on meds for quite some time, like, really don't think, don't look at it as you are looked at differently. But when we were growing up, that was a huge deal and it was a secret. And so they've normalized mental health in a way that we never were able to normalize it. So, and that is, to me, that's going to be kind of the next, ping pong tables and beer kegs at offices are gone. Now it's, how can I support you? How can the company, support you as a human being? Yeah. And that is what's going to be the attraction to people and the companies and the roles that they take.
And I love that. But it's still a balance, right? And I say this to a lot of my high school and my college clients of like, school is sometimes a lesson and a masterclass in learning how to do things you don't want to do, right? And that continues into our career. And that might even come as a bit jarring from like the confidence coach that's like, be anything, do anything. When you and I were growing up, we were all supposed to fit in one square box. Thank goodness we now live in a world where that box has different boundaries, right? It's not as much a box. There is so much room for unique individuals with unique skills and unique needs. And there are still jobs that need to be done and skills that need to be had. So it's not, we want you to be you and to get your needs met. There's that balance between the entitlement and the making it work.
Yeah. And I also think that, there's these internships, these corporate internships, and internships can be a very robust kind of program over the summer. The companies put a lot of money into it. The students get really excited about the different projects and things that they work on. And they think that that's actually what their first job's going to be like. And it is nothing like that. And so what it ends up doing is it can kill anyone's confidence when you go into your first job from college and realize, oh, wait a minute, this is what I'm doing every single day from 9 to 5. Like, this is what I graduated college to do. And you start second guessing yourself and you start to wonder, is this the right career for me? Is this the right type of company for me? Because inevitably, if your first job out of school is like an incredible job, bravo, but it's not really supposed to be. What it's supposed to be is it's supposed to be teaching you all the basic foundational skills of corporate America, of having a job from 9 to 5 and going from college to a company, just showing up to work from 9 to 5 can be very challenging. I mean, that's a big transition. then on top of that, you're doing probably tasks that feel menial to you and you just graduated college and you think you should be doing more. No, because what you should be doing is learning every single different task so that as you grow in your role or in the company, now you're going to be able to manage those that that replace you in those roles in a more empathetic way. And empathy is the best type of leader. So, but it's a big awakening after college, realizing, oh wait, this is my first job. Like what?
Yeah, it reminds me of, and I think that this is probably still true. And you'll challenge me or tell me, like there is still that like paying your dues, that you have to start at that ground level and be humble enough to. And I love what you also said of like you do everything. And, my confidence coach ears perked up. The ability to do everything is then when you realize, if we go back to the top of the show, what your definition of success is. Like, oh, I love to do this. This is what lights me up. And I do think that we're no longer in like our parents' generation where, you get your job out of college and that is the one that, you have for the rest of your life. I've had multiple identities and iterations of my career and feel so blessed for it. And I think that that's a beautiful thing that our generation, that the next generation, that's so normal for them.
And it's funny you say that, because I always say from a recruiter perspective, if I see that someone has been at a company for 15 years, I actually don't love that background. I look at it as they're a little stagnant and they got comfortable. And those who are, changing jobs every 5 years or so, they're learning all different types of environments. It makes them more flexible. They can adjust to, and also ideate based on their past experiences. So yeah, it is a way. And to your point, which is a huge point that I want to really emphasize, which is what the role that you take out of school may have literally nothing to do what you do with your life. You will have one role takes you to another role, which then takes you, and you do not know what your journey is going to turn out to be. Even if you go to law school, you might not want to be a lawyer. So I've seen you go to, get your teaching degree, then you don't want to be a teacher. So and then later in life, you decide, wait, I want to go be a teacher. I did this. Now I want to go back and do this. And that's what it's all about, is understanding that there is no straight line for your career and for your life in general.
That being said, we're going to go rapid fire with this one. There is no straight line. Love it, right? And there's no one definition of success. But there has to be, I assume, like the most valuable skills, your greatest hits. What are the most valuable skills that grads need to be successful? And we can say grads, but I mean, this starts younger, right? We can build up these skills in high school and into college. What are the most valuable skills and how can they be learned and developed?
Well, be comfortable being uncomfortable is literally the most valuable skill, period, end of statement. Authenticity and knowing who you are, and being able to communicate that, being able to express empathy. Empathy is going to become one of the most important skill sets in corporate America today as Gen Z takes over. I do believe communication and having personal contact with people, having conversations. If someone offers you for coffee, you take them up on coffee. Do not get on the phone to have the conversation. Anytime you can meet with people in person or if you are having any type of challenging conversation with a friend, take it off email and say, let's speak.
And I love what Heather said. We need to expect that to be uncomfortable. Like this isn't like that will be uncomfortable and that's okay. That's how we build up that muscle. I always come back to, and I do this with my 9-year-old. I make her order at restaurants. I make her order when we are somewhere I make her talk to the person if we're in a store. Like we can build that foundation at such a young age. And I've been doing that for years. It is that, and it might seem small.
Yes. No, it's have them call the restaurant to make the reservation. Have them, my daughters like to get manicures sometimes. So I'll say, that's great. Make yourself an appointment. You have to call, you have to ask, because they just want to do everything online. It's so easy to make, reservations or order out online, but have those phone, as I would say, those landline conversations that you can't avoid. You need to get to something, you have to talk to people, and maybe make your doctor's appointment, call your dentist, all of those different types of phone calls that you want to avoid just because you don't want to deal, like those are the ones you should be doing.
And I hate to go then to the negative, but what are the common mistakes or the mistakes that you're seeing, new candidates make, and how can they avoid those missteps?
Avoiding. Like they're just avoiding. You're waiting for things to happen for you. They're not. Do not wait for the company to just get back to you. Do not wait for someone just to follow up with you. Do not expect anybody else to do the work that you should be doing. You have to be proactive. And again, that's about putting yourself in an uncomfortable position, following up, saying, I haven't heard from you, just trying to do a quick check-in to make sure that I'm still a candidate in this interview process. And then they'll get back to you. Or if they don't, then shame on the company for a terrible candidate experience. But again, and you're avoiding it because you don't want to be rejected, right? But so back to the student, I think, who avoided even telling me yesterday because she probably didn't want to feel bad, like that, that I was going to say something to her that she was not going to be on the call. It's all avoidance. So the minute you're like, am I avoiding this? That's when you say, okay, let's do it.
And Heather, you're right. It all does come back to confidence. And that's one of the things, I mean, that was the basis of my TED Talk, right? Is confidence is not this fearless emotion. Confidence is our willingness to feel uncomfortable feelings and still take courageous action. And so that idea of, well, sure, you can avoid rejection, but when we avoid rejection, we also miss out on the emotion that's on the other side: acceptance, pride, accomplishment. And so our willingness to, as Heather so beautifully said, get comfortable being uncomfortable, that is how we create anything and everything that we want in this life, from the job to whatever it is.
Anything, but that's it. And I also think that it's a really important exercise to reflect on situations that you went into that you were really super uncomfortable, and then you come out of it and say, oh, look at that. Look what I did. Look what happened out of the situation that I wasn't even planning or thinking would happen. And those when you look at it from that perspective, then you know that you got to keep going. You got to keep doing it.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Celebrate those small steps or those giant leaps, because they're all growth and opportunities. Yes. And that's the fuel that ends up propelling you forward to keep doing it. Because there might be some days that you are rejected, and there might be some conversations that are awkward and hard. Celebrate yourself for being willing to do it and not avoiding, and then lovingly pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and try again.
And accepting that, especially when you say that, I think about managers giving feedback and how uncomfortable it feels to receive feedback from somebody who is assessing your performance from a company perspective. And instead of feeling defensive, there's an acceptance that needs to happen to say, okay, they're right. I'm going to work on this. I'm going to come up with an action plan, and you take it to heart.
Feedback is invaluable, and both things are true. It can be hard to hear, and it can be such a source of growth and opportunity if you are willing to not make it personal and not totally just feel defeated afterwards.
Yes.
And years later, you can be reflecting on it and probably be very thankful for it.
Right. 100%. 100%. Because the emotion piece isn't there anymore.
Sure.
So you're able to
Right.
look at it from a more, a less emotional perspective.
Yeah, it doesn't sting as much. The stinger's out.
Yeah.
Heather, I love this conversation. I love Adulting 101. And I feel like you and I just like skim the surface of just some of those skills. But I know that there's so much more to be found with the Adulting 101 Masterclass. So please check that out and find Heather on all the social. Heather, I'll let you close out the show. Any final tip, tool, or advice you'd like to give?
Well, so the one thing I just want to say is I have cohorts that I work with on a weekly basis so that we are building this community. And I go through each week just different areas of adulting to help really give you those foundational skills. So it's very meaningful conversation full with really interesting content of things I've learned in life as I'm continuing to learn as well. And I would just say, keep your chin up, be proud of your accomplishments, and start to, as you said, notice when you're comfortable being uncomfortable and keep working that muscle, because that is the muscle that will bring you the most success in life. Not even close. It is it. And thank you for having me. This was an honor and a privilege, and it was so fun. And I have so much respect in you, Leslie, and all that you're doing for this group, this generation as well. They need you in a big way, and you're showing up. So thank you.
I adore you, Heather. I love what you're doing. And I'm thankful that there are so many people out there who carry on this idea of why didn't they tell us these lessons learned later in life. And if we can be even, a quiet or a booming voice in the next generation's ears to love and believe in themselves, to be comfortable being uncomfortable, then, the future looks bright. My friends, why didn't they tell us that the only way to get to where you want to go is through it? And that might include some uncomfortable emotions, some life lessons, and some things we do not want to do. But thankfully, there are people like Heather and businesses like Adulting 101 that can make it just a little bit easier. My friends, till next time. Love what you hear? Well, I'd love to hear from you. You can find me at confidencecoachforgirls.com. That's confidencecoachforgirls.com. Or email me at lesliethelifecoach@gmail.com. That's lesliethelifecoach@gmail.com. Hope to hear from you.